Welcome. Today we're going to be discussing attacking mace and the relationships between it and other techniques in the American Kenpo system. Now keep in mind this video is not designed to be family groupings or a comprehensive list for that matter, but rather some different avenues in which you can take to explore and understand the structure of the American Kenpo system. So let's start out with the strategy of attacking mace. What is the base strategy? Well, if you take a look at it, the strategy is to close up our opponent's center line and then opening up the center line with our hand so we can take advantage of it using the foot. So let's start with our first relationship, evading the storm. So if we take a look at evading the storm, we're basically doing the same technique, but now instead of using the front center line, we're going to try to use the back center line. So in this case, opening it up by using our leg to expose it so that we can take advantage of it using the hand. So if we contrast this back to attacking mace, you could just as easily now do both concepts on the same technique, where we open up the front center line with our hand using our foot, and then using our foot to open up the rear center line so we can use our hand. So up to this point, we've been on a zone of action on the outside of a right. What if we took this to the outside of a left? Well, then we would get something like aggressive twins, where we're, again, closing up the center line with our hand, and then opening it up with the foot now so we can take advantage of it with the foot. But just like we can do this from the front, we can also do this from the rear. So if we look at something like thrust into darkness, we can open up the center line with our foot to take advantage of it with the foot. But remember, we have two center lines, the front and the back. So can we do the rear? Well, absolutely. We do something like escape from darkness, where now I open up the rear center line and take advantage of it using both the leg and the hand. So now that we talked about the strategy, let's move on to a different way in which we can relate attacking mace. Vice-like maneuvers, in this case, degrees of grabbing. So if you take a look at attacking mace, after we do our punch, we do a grab towards our opponent, right? Now keep in mind, grabs use our fingers to create a vice. So remember, these are vice-like maneuvers through friction. So in this case, we are grabbing our opponent. Well, what would be an opposite of that? Something like crossing talent, where they are grabbing us, right? Well, can we do a combination of the two? Yeah, any of our gift techniques where we're grabbing each other, right? So those would be degrees of grabbing, or different forms of vice-like maneuvers. So let's move on to something like triggered salute, where we're now dealing with one weapon, and we're again grabbing it, in this case pinning it, because we're not really grabbing with our fingers, but we're pinning it to our body so that we can deliver our technique. Well, can we do that against two arms? Something like mace of aggression. Well, yes, absolutely, right? We can still get that pin using our arm, and again, vice-like maneuver. So now that we did one of ours against two of theirs, can we do two of ours against one of theirs? Well, yes, that would bring us into something like snapping twig, where if you notice, we're again trapping the arm through a vice-like maneuver. The difference here is that the hands are not in line with one another, but they're off-center. So is that the only ways in which we can grab or create vice? Well, no, we could also use the back of the hands. If we take a look at something like Desperate Falcons, we're now creating that vice using the backs of the hands rather than the front of the hands. Can we do a single version of that? Well, yeah, that's what gets us into gripping talent, right? Where we can do that with the one hand. But is that the only way in which we can do that? Well, no. If we look at something like crashing wings, we can do this now using our elbows. So our elbows are now pinning the arm against our body. Well, what about scraping hoof? So if we look at scraping hoof, we're now using the arms to pin their arms against our body. But keep in mind, there's one more thing we're going to bring up, but we're not really going to discuss in this video, and that's the end of scraping hoof. If you take a look at it, we're also creating a vice with our foot against their foot using the floor. So to recap, the ways in which we just related attacking mace was through anything we can do with our hands, we can do with our feet, which is what we did at the end of scraping hoof, through the vice-like maneuvers or degrees of grabbing, and through the strategy behind the technique. We hope this video helps you understand the American Kenpo system a little bit better. Thank you very much.